Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing great and welcome to the on the session of Azure Data Analytics. Today, this is Lakshit Pant, your host for today, and I'm from Azure Developer Community. We are hosting so many events, boot camps for you, so that you can upskill yourself in Microsoft Azure. Today, we are back again with Azure Data Analytics. So, Jessie is our Azure Developer lead, and she'll be talking about Azure Data Analytics and how to get started with Azure Data. So, over to you, Jessie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lakshya, for inviting me. Just let me know whether my screen is visible or not.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah, it's
All
visible.
right.
Perfect.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, first of all. And let's start with the data analytics in Microsoft Azure. Like, as you might be getting these terms like data analytics very popular nowadays. So, let's start with this amazing concept. So before that, this is my introduction. I don't think that I need to give this. So let's start with the presentation only. Starting with the Azure data ecosystem. So, basically, what a data analytics is. So, let me tell you, data analytics is just a process where we can analyze our data. Like, for example, we are having our raw data and we want to analyze our data to be used further for the visualization purpose. So basically, for that, data analytics is a stream, or we could say a field, which help us in organizing our data. But earlier, what happened is we usually have a particular resource and we just collect data from them and we'll filter out that data or might just process that data to further visualize that data and create some insights and charts out of it. But nowadays we have several resources, we have ML and we have artificial intelligence, so we can collect several data from several resources and then we can filter out that data and then further we can use that data. So for modern analytics, that is for the modern like data and the concept that has came over with the AI and ML, so we need some modern tools as well to collect the data from different sources, many sources, and then transform that data and store that data to be used for the further visualization purpose. So for that we have different tools, different platforms wherein we can practice data analytics with different cloud platforms as well as on premises tools. So let's start with that. So starting with the Azure data storage solution. What is Azure is? So basically Azure is a cloud platform which is provided by the Microsoft. So as data analytics, you can use Azure to perform all your application, we could say, or operation to do the data analytics. So here the Azure provides several tools, several services to perform all the operations over data. So like starting from the data storage, so like how it allow you to store your data that you have collected from different sources. So here is the solution for that. So Azure is one of the solution which allowed you to store your data from which is collected from several resources. So as here you can see in this diagram your data sources, like sources from where you have collected your data. Then further your data is being stored, that raw data that you have collected, it's not filtered, it just get collected and stored. Then it could be any real time message as well or anything. Then we'll do some filtering over it, so that filtering could be takes place with the help of machine learning algorithms, we could say, that is further distributed or divided by the batch processing, stream processing, or by the combination of both the processing techniques. Then further we can store this the process data, that is your filter data, to the analytical data store that would be provided by the Azure. And then further you can use that data to create the visualize effects, reports, and other trends over it. So this is the way how Azure provide a solution to store your data. Now let's check how this data ingestion and processing takes place and what is data ingestion and processing. So talking about the data ingestion, so basically data ingestion is a process of obtaining and importing the data. For example, you are collecting a data, so that method, that the way you are collecting your data and you are obtaining your data so that you can use it further for the other steps, that process or that method is called data ingestion. Basically, that could be further used to store that data for the further processes. Then we have next process, that is data processing. So we usually have a raw data with us, so we want to convert our raw data into a meaningful information. So for that we have a process, or we could say a method, that is your data processing. So basically data processing is basically a simply conversion of the raw data to the meaningful information through a process, depending on how data is ingested in your system. Like this depends, like there are different processing techniques as well. So data processing is basically the conversion. Now further it can be divided by different techniques that we have. So it completely depends on the way your data is being ingested to the further steps. So coming about the further techniques about the data processing, so we basically have two techniques, that is your stream processing and batch processing. So basically whenever you have your data coming from the source and you are just your data is coming, you are filtering your data and you are passing on into the further step, then it is called as stream processing. But whenever you are getting your data from a source and it is collecting over a place, like it is storing over a place, and then further you are collectively filtering that data in the form of groups, and then further you are storing that data, so that is known as your batch processing. So these are the techniques that we have, or we can also do the combination of batch processing as well as stream processing together. That depends on your needs, like how your data is coming and your how what is the quantity of your data, so that completely depends on that. Next, we have visualized data in Azure Synapse Analytics. So basically, what is Azure Synapse Analytics? It is basically a sort of tools, we could say. So we have several tools to visualize our data, because the data we are having, which is it is in large quantity. We can't recognize the data and we can't recognize some parts out of it, get insights out of it. So to make it more attractive, to make it more readable, we usually visualize that in form of charts, in form of reports, so that we can get insights out of it and we can do further operations over it. Like we can apply your SQL queries, you can fetch your data, and you can do anything with your data. So it makes it easy to work over it. So basically for that we have one tool, that is Azure Synapse Analytics. We could say a methodology of to process your data and to work over your data. So basically Azure Synapse Analytics, it provides a suite of tools. We could say a set of tools to process, analyze your data. Basically, it incorporates the SQL technologies, transact SQL query capabilities, and it provides an open source Spark tools to enable you to quickly process your large amount of data. So in this way, it provides a platform, we could say, or tool, we could say, to process your data further, which you can use to visualize your data. So it provides a like we can have Synapse Studio with us, which can allow us to operate over our data, which we can by which we can apply some SQL queries over it. So this is the one way by which we can visualize the data. Now this is the another way, that the another tool we have, which is provided by the Microsoft, that is Microsoft Power BI. It is again provided at the Azure portal only. So this is the another way by which we can visualize our data to make it more readable. So Power BI is an enterprise analytical tool, we could say. Here we can generate some interactive reports by the help of Power BI tool. So it will help us to visualize or turn our large amount of data into the granular data, so that it could be easily understandable and it will be very easy to visualize that data and get information out of it. So we could say that it is the tool which is involved Synapse plus some more features, like we have Synapse at one step, then on further step we'll have Power BI. Next, we have types of data analytics. analytics. Now we get a small insight that how what a data analytics is and how it works over. Now going into the deeper concept that data analytics is also divided among several types. We know that data analytics is that we are working over data, we are visualizing our data, we are operating over data, and we are just we are collecting our data. But what type of data we are working on and what we are getting out of it. So there are several parts, subparts we could say, of that data analytics, so that we can further subdivide it so that we can work over it collectively. So basically data analytics is the huge concept, that is the main concept over which we are exploring the data, we are getting insights out of it, we are making it visualize, and we are working over that data. But data analytics covers several activities which have a unique process in themselves. So data analytics is divided among several categories, that is your diagnostic data, descriptive data analytics, prescriptive analytics, predictive analytics, and cognitive analytics. So let's see one by one. So, firstly, we have our descriptive analytics. So, descriptive analytics is the branch of data analytics, we could say, where it will answer your question that what happened based on the historical trend. Like for example, as you can see in this graph, so like here you can see that what had happened, so there is a flow of that. So we have different data and we have different bar over it. So it will answer the question that what happened that our trend goes down, what happened that our trend goes up. So that answer is provided by the descriptive analytics. Here, it will collect the information from the historical data, which is further used to work over the data that will be using in our future. What will be the effect of the data in the future, basically. So it will summarize the large data set to present the insights to the stakeholders. It is the most common type because we are using the historical data that we have to predict something that will be happening in future. So basically it will be a descriptive analytics. Next we have diagnostic analytics. So diagnostic analytics is again a branch of data analytics which will help in answering the questions that why things happen. Like in earlier descriptive analytics, we have learned about what happened. Now here diagnostic analytics will tell that why things happen. So why the trends are going down, that why that trends were going down. So it will give the answer to the question why this happened, and which we can further use to optimize that, which we can further use to work over it so that our trends will not go down and will improve our trends. So basically it will give a metrics and indicator of interest that are further investigated to discover the loopholes that we are having in our data. So diagnostic analytics will answer this question. Further, we'll have predictive analytics. Predictive analytics helps us in answer the question that what will happen in the future. So basically, we have our data that we have from historical data. Then we have our diagnostic data, which will tell that why this happened. But now predictive analytics, it will tell that what will happen in future. So it will answer the question that what will going to happen in the future. Basically it will provide us insight to so that we can work over that and we can improve our stats so that we can get a better results. So and basically it is mostly used by the data scientists and data analysts because it will the whole result of the organization data is completely dependent on the predictive analytics. Next we have prescriptive analytics. So prescriptive analytics is the step, we could say, or branch of data analytics which will tell or which will answer the question that what actions should be taken to achieve a particular goal or target. Now predictive analytics, as we have listened earlier, will tell us that what will going to happen in the future. But prescriptive analytics will answer the question that why and what should be the steps taken so that we could achieve the predictive analytics. It will tell us that. like what methodology, what techniques of the machine learning algorithms which we can use, like we can use decision tree algorithm, regression, or what we can use so that we can get a proper result, we can get an optimized solution. Like for example, a linear regression will give some other result, and your like decision tree will giving some other result. But which algorithm or which technique is giving the best result? So what should we use so that we can get the best result? So prescriptive analytics will tell us about that only. It will predict all your uncertainty that will going to happen, so that it will like analytics predict your uncertainty, and which you can work over that, so that you can get the better results by the help of the prescriptive analytics. It is basically relying on the machine learning algorithms and patterns that, as I have already mentioned. So like here we can change our stats for the further, so that we can get the optimized solution for our further data and further results. Next we have cognitive analytics. So basically we could say that cognitive analytics is the most important branch nowadays, because it's the combination of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics. It covers all these three domain, we could say, to approach the right data, and like we to approach the right future goal that we have. So cognitive analytics basically draws the interference from existing data and pattern, and it derives the conclusion based on the existing knowledge base that we have, and it will add some finding backs into the knowledge base, so that we could recover our loopholes that might occur in the future inference. So basically it is the combination of all the three main domain that we have. So as you can see here, like here we have business app, we have custom apps and sensors and devices, which are like processed through the cognitive services, and then it will reach to the people, apps, and automated system that are generated out of it from these data. So here it is the combination of data, intelligence, and action basically. So these all things are combined together. So this is the most important branch of the data analytics, we could say, nowadays. Next we have data analytics process. So what is the whole process of data analytics, how this takes place? So let me explain this. So there are several phases of data analytics that we have, so that we can process our data, we can get valuable information out of our data, and which we can convert into an asset for our organization. So starting with the first step, that is your requirements gathering. So basically, like your company, you are having a company. Now your company is requiring a particular data, like you just want to get information of the people who are going to gym. So you are just collecting that information. So you are firstly gathering requirements, that what type of data you are needing. So first phase is requirement of the gadget, like the make down a list of the requirements, that type of data you want. Then second phase is the data ingestion and data processing. In data ingestion, what happens is your data is being just fetched from that particular source. Like you have your requirements, that what type of data you want, then you have a source, and then the obtaining or fetching of the data from that particular source is known as data ingestion. Then further the data processing will take place, that you are having your raw data. Now your raw data is being converted into the useful information with the help of the data processing. There are several techniques over it, but we are generally termed it as data processing. Then we have data exploration. So like we just quickly check over the data that we are having in our database, so that we can work over that. So data exploration is just a quickly checkup of data and exploring the data that we are having, the information, the useful information that we are having. Now next phase is the data analysis. Data analysis is the organization of your data that you are having, so that you can apply some algorithms, ML algorithm over it, and you can then further use it for the further steps. So data analysis is the way by which we can organize our data. Then we have deploy analytics solution. So the solution to obtain the data, to work over that data, to operate over that data, and to store that data. So deploy analytics solution, like the way we are visualizing our data, the way we are creating reports from our data. So that is your deploy analytics solution. Then we have request and process feedback. So the you have your visualized data, now you are having reports out of your data. Now you want audience or other company members to recognize that and to give feedback over it, so that you can improve that data and improve that visualized data or stats, so that you can further make it useful or valuable for your company. So requesting and process feedback, it's again a important phase. Then we have optimized solution. Based upon your feedback and request that you are having from the people that you have taken the feedback of, you can optimize your solution. You can you can make your results better, so that it can become valuable for your company. So this is the way how whole data analytics process takes place. So like here, as you can see here, these are the phases, seven phases that we have. Next we have types of data and data storage. Now we have heard about the data analytics process, how it takes place and everything. But here we have different types of data, because data can't be of any single type. We have data in the form of videos, we have data in the form of pages, we have data in the form of tables, we have data in the form of images, videos, and etc. So many formats are there. So these data are divided into the types of data, so that it could be processed and operated accordingly on the basis of the types of data we have. So basically, on the major domain, we could say, so we have two types of data. First is your structured data, second is your unstructured data. So structured data is basically a type of data where we have our data in form of structured manner, that we could say in a tabular format. So like you can have your data in your Microsoft Excel sheet, or you can have your data in any table or like any tabular format. So all that data which is arranged properly in the form of a table, so that you can directly apply some Azure SQL queries over it. So that type of data is your structured data. Second type is your unstructured data. Unstructured data is the data in the form of Word documents, in the form of CSV files, JSON files, images, videos, PDFs, or any other sort of data that we have. But we directly can't apply some SQL queries over it. We need to use some other techniques, or we could say another languages over it to operate over that data. Like we have PostgreSQL, we can have NoSQL over it. So we can apply those languages over it, so that we can operate over that data. But these coming towards the storage of the data, so basically the structured data is basically stored in the Azure SQL databases, because they are in the form of tables, so it can directly be stored in the Azure SQL databases. But the data that is in the video, audio, and images, CSV files, which cannot be directly stored in the form of tables, so here we have Azure Data Lake storage for that purpose. So these are again another tool that is provided by the Azure to make the your data store at the safe place, and it provides a security over it. Next we have data team roles and responsibilities. Now we got a brief idea about what a data analytics is, and like what type of data we have, how the processing takes place, and what are all the steps over it. Now coming towards the roles that you might have listened, and you might be your friends are working on the same role in the data field. So basically in the field of data, we have major five roles that we have. So first is your data analyst, second is your database administrator, then data engineer, data scientist, and data architect. So starting with the first role, that is your data analyst. So data analyst is the person who manipulates who we could say manipulate your data into the visualized form, that will convert your valuable data, because data is an asset for every company. So the data analyst is the person who can collect some valuable insights from the data and convert into the useful visualized format, so that it could become more valuable for the company. So data analyst is the person, this is the specific role of the person. Now coming towards the database administrator. So database administrator is the person who basically manages the database and who can operate the data, who can work over the data, who can maintain the integrity and integrity of the data, and basically apply the asset properties over it, like we could say integrity and all the consistency over your data. So data administrator is the person who is responsible for managing the data. He's the admin of the data base we have. Next we have data engineer. So, data engineer is the person who provides a platform to work and to create a databases to be worked over by the database administrator and the users. So, data engineer basically a person who just create a platform, whether it could be a cloud platform or whether it could be an on-premises platform. So data engineer is the person, but data engineer is sort of different from the data administrator, because data engineer is creating the platform and database administrator is working over the databases. So data engineer are creating platforms for the creating the databases, and further database administrator are working over that databases. Coming towards the data scientists. So data scientists are the persons who are applying some advanced technologies over the data that we have to create some more valuable insights. Like data analyst is doing the same thing, but they are not using some advanced technologies. They are using some predefined methods and some machine learning algorithm that are usually made already available. But data scientists are just experimenting the algorithms. They are just creating some more valuable stuff over that. Then we have data architect. So data architect is the person who is responsible for creating some who's managing the data specifically. So they are basically more of having some leadership skills and more of having some technical knowledge over data. So data architect is a person who basically manages everything, manage whose the main role is to manage everything. So that was the specific roles and the their responsibilities that these roles have. Now, coming towards the analyst task. So specifically talking about the data analyst. So data analyst is the person who need to collect and clean the data for analysis. Then he need to ingest, transform, and model the data in a reporting tool by using some machine learning algorithms. Then he or she needs to generate some data products, dashboards, and some interactive reports, and then communicate the findings with the relevant stakeholders and monitor the usage of analytics solution, gather and incorporate feedback and additional requirements. So basically these are the roles that a data analyst should have to perform, whether if he or she has assigned the position or role of the data analyst. Now talking about the tools that are provided by Azure that a data analyst can use to do all these tasks. So basically we have Synapse and we have Power BI tool with us, which a data analyst can use to do all the stuff that is mentioned here. To clean the data, to process the data, to ingest the data, to store the data, and to apply the algorithms and to apply the queries over the data. So these tools can help in everything. Next, we have Azure Analysis Services. Now, talking and going deep inside about the Azure Analysis Services, so we have different services. Like I've usually mentioned the tools that is Synapse and Power BI that basically use for the visualization purpose, that we can use for the last step that we have in data analysis. But before that we also need some tools to sort that data, to collect that data, to store that data. So for that we have different other tools as well that are provided by Azure. So basically Azure Analysis Services enables you to build the tabular models to support the online analytical processing queries, so that you can apply some SQL over it, so that you can fetch the data and operate over your data. So, you can combine data from multiple sources, including Azure SQL databases, Azure Synapse Analytics, Azure Data Lake Storage, Azure Cosmos DB, and many other platforms or tools, we could say. So, basically, it's the services that are provided by the Azure to do and process your data. Then coming towards the Azure HD Insight. So Azure HD Insight is basically a big data processing service that provides the platform for the technologies such as Spark in an Azure environment. Azure HD Insight implements a clustered model that distributes processing across a set of computers. Like as you can see here, so specifically you have your data sources, then logs and events from where you are collecting your data, or sensors, it could be sensors as well. So here these are the sources from you are collecting your data. Then you are processing your data through Apache Hadoop on HT inside your like logs and event and other data sources. And you might can transfer the direct sensors data or any other data if you don't want to do it and process it further by HT inside. Then we have further data processing on HD Insight to process your data, that will be done on the Azure storage again. Then we have interactive query on HD Insight, that will be on your Azure Data Lake, so that you can process over it and you can filter your data further. Then we have analysis models that you can use, like you can apply some ML algorithms and you can train or test your data so that you can get some more insights and some valuable information out of it. Then further you can use that information to be processed through the Power BI tool or Synapse Analytics tool, so that you can create some visualized version out of it. So this is the way how the whole process takes place. Next we have common practices for data loading. So like basically, as I have already mentioned, that data ingestion is the way by which we can load our data or we can fetch our data. But we have again several techniques to fetch our data or to load our data. So, okay, so that again depends on the type of data we have. So first method is the ingestion of the data using the Azure Data Factory. So this is the one tool we could say that we are using for ingestion of the data. So Azure Data Factory is the data ingestion and transformation service that allows you to load raw data from many different sources, both on premises and in the cloud. So basically, this method or this Azure Data Factory service is the basically used when we have our data on cloud or maybe having our data on premises devices. So it will fetch our data, raw data, and it will load that data to the data storage and data analytics processes. So like as here you can see that you have your external data that may be on your cloud, and you have your on premises data. So these are the data sources that you are having. Then it will ingest that data, that will be in your Azure file storage, and like further will be stored at Azure file storage. And then further it can be used for the data storage and data analytics process through the Azure Synapse Analytics and further techniques. So this is your data factory basically. Next, we have understand link services. There are those several more techniques, but I haven't mentioned that. But you can explore that from the Azure website as well, or you can explore that from the Azure portal itself. Then talking about the link services that we have. So going deep dive into the data factory, so there are some more features that are provided by the data factory. So like data factory moves data from a data source to a destination. So a link service provides the information needed for data factory to connect to a source or destination. So linked services basically provides the information that is used by the data factory, so that it could transfer that data from the source to the destination, particular destination, because we also needing an address, so that your data could be transferred from the source to the destination correctly. So we need an address for that. So that address we could say is provided by the link services. Coming towards the data sets. So a data set in Azure Data Factory represent the data that you want to ingest or store. So data set is the like basically a data factory that represents the data that you want to ingest and store. That means that you want to further use, or like data that you're having in the tabular format or in your like data lake that you have, which you are using for further getting input out of it, or by using some techniques like by applying some algorithms, or you can get some output out of it. And then we have pipelines. So basically a pipeline is a logical grouping of activities that together perform a task. Like for example, if we are doing 2 or 3 tasks together, so that will be in a sort of pipeline. So the activities in a pipeline defines the action to perform your data on your data. So it will show that these are the tasks that we are going to perform together. So that is the pipeline that will tell us that what the task that we are going to perform. Next, we have data storage and data processing. Now, again, going deep dive into the methods or the type that we are using to store our data, again, depends on the type of data we have. So, processing of the data using Azure Synapse Analytics. So, this is the first way by which we can process our data, or by using the tool Azure Synapse Analytics. So, Azure Synapse Analytics is a generalized analytics service that is commonly provided by the Azure, and we can use it to read the data from many sources, process the data, and generate various analyze and models, and save the results out of it. So basically here in this Synapse Analytics, we use basically two technology. First is your Transit SQL, and second is your Spark. So Transit SQL is the same dialect of the SQL that we are having, that we are applying over the Azure SQL databases to fetch our data and to operate over our data. So that is basically on the transaction, because it will provide some more aggregation, more authentication over our data, so that our data may be consistent and integrated over the several devices and over cloud as well. Then we have Spark. So this is the same open source technology that is used to power the Azure Database specifically. So like we can write the analytical code using the notebooks in the programming language by using the Spark, like C Sharp, Scala, Python, SQL. So we can use that. So Spark libraries provide with the Azure Synapse Analytics with some more features over it, so that we can work over our data and operate over our data. So like here, as you can see here in this diagram, like we have our external data from data lake database files, which is further passed on through the Azure Synapse Analytics, where it will goes to the control node, and all the task is being performed in a pipeline that is your on computer nodes, and which we can further use for the Azure database, like which can further be stored over the Azure database and Azure storage. And like we can directly like user can directly transact that SQL over it, like the data we are having over our control nodes. Moving ahead towards the second process that we are having using the Azure Databricks. So Azure Databricks is again an analytics platform which is optimized for the Microsoft Azure cloud services specifically. So talking in terms of the data that we are having on our cloud, so it is basically used for that purpose only. It will work over the data that we are having on our cloud to be operated by using the platform that is your Databricks, Azure Databricks. So it is again designed by the founders of the Apache Spark, and Databricks is integrated with Azure to provide the one-click setup, streamlined workflows, and interactive workspace that enables collaboration between data scientists, data engineers, and business analysts. So like they all together can work over that, because it's a cloud service. So again, so many people can work over it, and then they can process and operate the data together. So next we have a third technique, that is using the Azure HD Insight. So basically Azure HD Insight is managed analytics service in the cloud. Again, it is on the cloud. But here in earlier we are using Apache Spark. But here in Azure HD Insight we are using Apache Hadoop. It is a collection of open source tools and other utilities. Spark is providing us the libraries to be performed over our cloud data. But here we are having Apache Hadoop. So it will provide an open source tool to us and other utilities to be work and to process our data, so that we can to be process our large amount of data that we're having over our cloud. So it will use in the clustered model, and that is similar to the Synapse Analytics, but it is for cloud purpose specifically. Then we have Azure Data Lake storage to store the data that we are getting from the HD Insight, and like we can use some frameworks over it, like Hadoop, Map, Reduce, Apache Spark, Apache Hive, Apache Kafka, Apache Storm R, and many more we can use. Next, we have processing of the data using Azure Data Factory. So this is again the another platform or service that is provided by Azure to ingest our data, large amount of the raw data, unorganized data from the relational and non-relational system, and then convert this data into the meaningful information. So specifically, Data Factory provides a scalable and programmable ingestion engine that we can use to implement the complex hybrid extract, transform, load, and extract the load, transform, and data integration projects specifically. So like here in this we can get some large amount of data that we are having, that could be in structured data or that could be unstructured data. That whole can be converted together from raw data to the meaningful information by using the platform Data Factory with us. So like here you can see that here it is the blob storage. That means it could be unstructured data or structured data. So we usually have blob storage, that is your unstructured data. Then it is ingested, and that means loaded to the Hive query, that is your Data Factory pipeline, that these two processes takes place together. That then it is further stored to the Cosmos DB, and further it will partition the data, that is the useful information, or like it will set a priority over it. And then further we can use it for our visualization purpose or to create some useful reports over it. Next we have process data using Azure Data Lake. So here it is the another, we could say, platform or service that is provided by Azure to process the data or to store the data, that is your Azure Data Lake. So basically, talking about what a data lake store is. So data lake store provides a file system that can store the near limitless quantities of the data. So but basically, like we have, when we have large amount of data, huge amount of data, so we can store that data over data lake. Specifically talking about the unstructured data, because we usually don't have the size of the data that we are having. Because in structured data we usually have a particular data sort of column, sort of rows that we already know that we are working over. So we can collect them particularly and can store them in Azure Azure SQL database, so that we can perform and operate over that. But in unstructured data we usually don't have any idea that how much data we have, or how much what will be the size of the data. So we usually take it as some limitless data that we are having. So for that we have data lake store. Next, we have Data Lake Analytics. So basically, Azure Data Lake Analytics is an on-demand analytics job service that we can use to process the big data. That is specifically for the big data. It provides a framework and set of tools that we can use to analyze the data that is held in the Azure Data Lake store and the other repositories. So it is further used to analysis your data that is present over the data lake store. So this is the way this platform is being used. Now coming towards the components of the Azure Synapse Analytics. So basically, as I have told you, that Azure Synapse Analytics is one of the tools that we are using to create and process our data and to create some visualized insights out of it. So similarly, there are several components. If we are going to deep dive of the Synapse Analytics, so there are several components which we can use to do the several tasks. So basically, Azure Synapse Analytics is an integrated analytics service that allows organization to gain the insights quickly from all their data at an hyperscale from both the data warehouses as well as from the big data analytics system. So these are, like, as you can see that there are several lists. So we have Synapse pipelines, we have Synapse links, we have Synapse Studio, Synapse SQL, Synapse Spark. So these are the several components that we have. We could say tools or features that we have from the Azure Synapse Analytics that we can further use to process our data and to create some visualize effect out of it. Next, we have Power BI tools and workflow. So this is the another tool that we are having. First is your Synapse tool that we are having for visualization purpose. Then the second tool is Microsoft Power BI. So basically, Microsoft Power BI is again a suite of tools that we are having, or services we could say, that data analysts can use to build some interactive data visualization for business users to consume. Like it will allow us to create some usual, or we could say some useful interactive reports, so that we can get some more insights over it. So like here you can see that we are having our data from SQL databases, we are having our data from cloud, from files, from like lake storage, we can have it from lake Excel sheet or anywhere. These are the sources of our data. Then we pass on it through the Power BI desktop, so to make it visualize. Then it will goes towards from like passes over through the Power BI service. which will change your data, which will convert your data into the visualized format. And then you can see your data in the web browser, or you can see your data in the Power BI folder. So this is the way how it works. It will take your data from the source, then it will process it through the desktop, then it will pass on through the cloud services, then further you can see over it, over the browser or over your phone. Now coming towards the core concept of the data modeling. So usually we have our data, and we generally divide our data to be work on, so that we can train our model and then we can test our model. So basically we could say a data modeling takes place, so that we can make some insights out of it, we can make some get a better results out of it. So for that, we have training data, we have testing data that we can divide by using ML algorithms or certain techniques that we are having. So analytic models enable you to structure the data to support analysis. Specifically, it structures your data so that you can further use it, further divide it, or further perform some operations over it. Like models are based on relative tables of the data and define the numeric values that you want to analyze or report, basically. So like here you have, like this diagram, you can see that we are having some data that is your customer, time, and product. So like these are the total revenue of the wrenches sold to the Samir in January, for example. Like this is the collective data that we are getting. So this is the whole data model, because we need product, we need time, we need customer. All these things are very important so that we can obtain the final total revenue. So this is the whole data model that we have. Now talking about the tables and schema. So basically, dimension tables are represents the entity that we are working over. So like we are here, we are having customer table, we are having product table. Now collectively we are getting sales table out of it, because we are taking the product key as the foreign key here, and customer key as again foreign key here, and the sales key as our primary key. Then further, we are using it for the time dimensions, for creating a further table, that is the time dimension table, and further obtaining the results out of it. So here with the dimension tables and schema basically represents the data that is collectively stored in the form of the columns and rows, so that we can perform some SQL queries over it, and we can further divide our data on that we are having on our data model, so that we can work and process some data algorithms over it, so that we can further create some visualized reports or visualized versions of the data out of it. Next, we have analytical modeling in Microsoft Power BI. So basically, we have Microsoft BI tool with us, like we are having our data from the source. Now here Microsoft Power BI is used to define an analytical model from tables of the data. Like we have our data in these tables stored. Now it will create a model out of it, which will collect the data from all the tables, so that it could be get collected and form a model which can be further used to divide the data on certain training purpose, on certain testing purpose, which can be further used to apply some ML algorithms over it, and further we can generate some results out of it. So here is the analytical, here's the way the Power BI tool is used to analyze your model and to create an analytical model out of it. So talking about the visualization, so like what a data visualization is, like you might be getting this, that again and again I'm using the term data visualization. So what a data visualization is? So data visualization is the way that we are creating our data into a more visualized format. Like we are having our data in terms of sheets, in terms of rows, in terms of columns, but we are not getting some information out of it. Like we need to check every cell, we need to go on each row and check the information from that, but we it will take time, and it will give not it will not give better results, because we might skip some rows and columns out of it. So we use visualized data. So like the data is being converted into the form of bar charts, pie charts, bar graphs, or like line charts, so that we can further use it, so that we can further get some valuable feedback out of it. Like here you can see that, like I might be having several rows and columns here for this data. But here in this single chart you're getting a correct view that the tools, the here dark blue represents the tools and light blue represents the hardware that we're having. So here's the revenue generated out of it, and here's the city on which the in which this revenue has been generated. So this will tell that the in Seattle the more people use tools, and in New York the people use hardware more than the tools. Then in Los Angeles they people use both equally. So here's the view that we are getting from the charts and from the graphs, we could say. Again, in this pie chart, we could see the same. Then again, in this line chart. So like here, we can get some information in more correctly in our visualized format, more readily, we could say. Next, we have interactive reports in Power BI. So basically, Power BI is using to create some very interesting and like visualized format of our data. So we can also generate some interactive reports with the help of Power BI tools. Interactive reports in the sense that it will contains the data, and it will tell us that what data is represented by which category, or which what is the keywords that we are getting from our data. So basically, the visual element for related data in a report are automatically linked to one another and provides the interactivity. So like here you can say that this data is being interactive to this, like they are just integrated towards and they are giving a together results to us. So basically, like we are having Power BI tool to getting more visualized form, and also we can do the same stuff by using the Synapse analytics, but Power BI gives them additional features so that we can create some more interactive visual effects over our data. So that's all about the data analytics from my side. So thank you so much for having me. These are the resources that I have created this PPT from, and you can also explore these resources. So I'll share this to the Lakshit, and he will share in the chat box. So that's all. Lakshit, am I audible to you?
Yes, you are audible to me. So thank you. Thank you for giving your incredible insights about the data analytics Power BI. It was very nice interacting with you. So thank you for joining in, and we are hoping to collaborate with you in future events too. And thank you guys. Thank you for joining in. If you have any doubts to share or any doubts in your mind, so you can just drop your doubts in the chat box. Otherwise, you can just join our Azure Developer Community Discord group. Here is the just a second. Let me type the link. Okay.
Also share these resources in the comment box.
Yeah, okay, just a second. Uh, so, guys, the first link is for basically Azure Developer Discord community channel. The second and third links are basically the resources that our speaker is sharing with you. These are basically Microsoft Azure official documentation. You can just go through it and try out yourself hands-on labs and everything. So definitely try this out. You will get some free subscription through your GitHub developer student pack and everything also. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for coming us and telling the uh, audience Azure Data Analytics. So thank you.